when you want to start with.
All right, go ahead, we're ready.
Well, I'm Bud Reed. Was born in October 16th, 1916 in Mannford. And my folks came to Mannford when it was still an Indian territory, and my father was a bridge builder for Frisco Railroad when he came to Mannford, and they came from Greensburg, Indiana, and my mother came from Lebanon, Missouri. And when they got their bridges built for the Frisco Railroad, instead of moving on with the railroad, they decided they'd stay in Mannford and help build a town in Mannford. My father and his two brothers built most of the buildings that were built in the old town of Mannford.
What would his brother's names be?
The oldest brother was named Ed, and the youngest was Reese, and my father was the middle. His name was Vern. And
they built the Frisco Bridge west of town?
Yes, they built the bridges for the Frisco Railroad.
So that'd be around 1902?
Somewhere close to that, between 1902 and 1905 or 6, something. And it was, of course, Mannford in the early days was quite a cow town, and a lot of cattle was shipped on the railroad there, and they had a real good stockyards and could boast of 2 cotton gins. It was sort of a cotton country. In fact, where the actual town side of Manford was a cotton field. Mm-hmm. So as the town grew and then the oil come in, I guess Manford would be termed as an oil boom town too. And most of the drillers and the tool dressers that drilled all over this oil boom country, Manford was sort of the headquarters. Most all of them lived around in the Manford area. And then they would work through the different oil fields in the boom towns. And of course I came along in October 16, 1916, and was born on the Miller Ranch just west of town. And I don't know exactly how old I was when we moved into town, but I was pretty young. And
do you remember the tornado that went through the Miller Ranch?
Yeah, but I was going to school in those.
You weren't living there though?
Well, yeah.
On the Miller Ranch?
No, I was living in town.
Oh, you'd already moved into town?
Yeah. Yeah, I was probably, what, 15, 16 years old when that.
Didn't it hit the Miller Ranch 2 or 3 times?
Well, yeah, there were several tornadoes hit. And I don't think any ever hit just right the town of Manford, but they hit on all sides of it. The one that hit the Miller Ranch, stripped the chickens even, and the refrigerator that they had in the kitchen and on the ranch was sitting out in the yard with a glass full of milk sitting on top of it, and there wasn't a drop spilled. It just picked it up, set it out there, and didn't spill a drop of milk.
But all the chickens are naked.
Yeah, the chickens had not feather one on them and no blood either.
Well,
And that was really a sight to see.
yeah, I'd like to see that. Wouldn't have been a chicken back then.
And of course, tornadoes tornado does some funny things, and my father helped rebuild the town of Kiowa, Kansas when the tornado went through there, and right on Main Street there's the telephone pole. There was a wheat straw run through that pole, stuck through about 6 inches on each side. And to this day, or the last time I was in Kiowa, Kansas, that they had a glass case built around that, and it was still there the last time that I was in Kiowa.
That's amazing.
And that just an idea of what kind of a wind a tornado had. And of course, I spent all 12 years of my school in Mannford, and during my 4 years of high school, I drove a school bus, worked in a service station and garage in the evenings and on Saturday and Sunday, and went to school. And graduated in 1937.
Who was the, you said you worked in the station there. Whose station?
Fox and Bell Motor Company.
Fox and Bell?
Fox and Bell.
Oh, Fox and Bell Motor
Yeah.
Company.
Belt,
Where was that located? Kind of describing the old town where that was at.
It was on Main Street, just right. Of course, the garage was right next to the post office. The post office was just across south from the drugstore building, which would be been on the opposite side of the street from the bank building. And that actually, when they first started talking about damming up the Cimarron, was going to be the Manford Dam. Was the first project that the Corps of Engineers had come up with, and they core drilled that Cimarron just above where the Manford Oak Hill Cemetery is now. And the summer that they done the core drilling, I took a job as a roustabout on the core drill for the Corps of Engineers.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
Yeah. The day and morning I went to work, they had a $3,000 diamond bit hung in a quicksand on the Cimarron River, and we worked. My first shift was 18 hours trying to get that diamond bit loose from that quicksand.
Did you get loose?
Finally, just had to cut the drill stems in two and leave it. In fact, there are several of those bits underneath that lake out there now. And so,
But that period there would have been in the latter part of the 30s, wouldn't it?
yeah, that was 35 and 6 when they was core drilling for the Mannford Dam. And then, of course, the war came along, World War II come along, and that cooled the Corps of Engineers projects down for it. Of course, that still hung over the people's head there in Manford, and when they finally did come up with the start up again, well, then they come up with the idea of the Keystone Dam, which took the place of two more of the two dams, the Manford Dam and the Oologah Dam at that time. And that was supposedly they were going to dam where the Arkansas and the Cimarron both runs together. And of course, was lots of history around the old town Mannford that probably we should come up with before we start in on this,
Before we get the town moved over.
before we move it. And of course, Manford was actually a good old cow town, and we, of course, my school years were with had the vocational agriculture, and we had some real good livestock shows and livestock fairs, and during my high school, I was a livestock judge. We had the three boys were as a team, and we almost won everything that was in the books for 3 years of high school.
You went state, didn't
Yeah, and won a trip to the Kansas City Royal. That particular year, I come out as high individual in livestock judging.
you? Who were the other guys on the
Best
team?
in the state. Paul Hinton and Paul LeBeer were the two other boys that judged with me. And one year we had one of the boys was named Ralph Reynolds. But
So
he,
if you came out first in Kansas City Royal, was that first in the United States then?
well, the Kansas City Royal, we just was a livestock show, but they didn't have judging, team judging like that. That was our prize for winning the state of Oklahoma.
Well, Manford was pretty well known statewide as having a top chapter, weren't they?
Yes, and we even elected Paul Revere as the state president. And my office in the vocational agriculture was reporter.
Reporter, okay. I thought you were sentinel, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
You were a reporter for 4 years, weren't you?
Yeah, and the year I was a junior, I guess, was we were at the Frisco State Fair, and of course, Manford chapter was sort of was top in the livestock judging, so our chapter, Eleanor Roosevelt was visiting the Creek County Fair this particular day. My spot was under the flag and as a reporter, and when she came in with her that big hat that she was noted for wearing, you know, with fruit all over it, and I don't know, I guess I had quite a smile on my face with what that had, but anyhow she walked over and shook hands with me and gave me a big kiss.
Well, yeah, that's great.
For, I suppose the reason for that was I was stationed under the flag. And I got ribbed quite a bit about that.
That'd be worth it for a young high school lad to get kissed by the
Yeah.
first lady.
It was pretty interesting. And of course, after I graduated out of high school, I took over a service station in a garage full time.